Hello, everybody. Let's call it some major bombshell news came out from there on September 8th, sorry. Not a minor story here that NAMM is, the 2022 show is going to change to June 3rd to 5th next year instead of the expected January event, which we've been used to, which would have been January 20th to 23rd. Also, we have, there's only going to be one show next year, no Summer NAMM. So to talk about that, I have NAMM President and CEO Joe Lamond, and thank you for joining us. And Joe, we just have to start with the question everyone's asking, why? Why did you make that decision? Why did you make the change? And tell us what went into it.
Yeah, context is so important, isn't it? I mean, think about where we were in May and June, especially here in California, where things were opening up. Everyone was seemingly feeling that this was, if not totally behind us, it was going to be behind us shortly. We went into Nashville with a wonderful, wonderful event there. And of course, in Nashville, it appeared that they had never had a pandemic. So even more, of that feel that we were on the other side of it. And then in the ensuing weeks afterwards, with the introduction of the Delta variant and the spread of it, really kind of put us back into a place where, this isn't going to be as smooth a climb out as we had thought. It wasn't going to, there were more surprises to come, and that was really affecting a lot of things. The global travel bans stayed in place instead of dropping away. Here in California, we still have a ban on indoor events over 5,000. That was slated to expire in November, but as time is going on, that's less and less likely. And I think the most important aspect of the decision is to think about a show, the scope and scale of the NAMM Show, and that the planning that goes into that actually, for us, the show date is about mid-August, as far as where you are really committed and moving forward with all the aspects of the show being firm. And you just can't decide in November, December to do a show or not do a show. It's too big of a super tanker to turn that way. And same with many of our large exhibitors and actually all our members. Many of them were making decisions right in this time out, 5-6 months out. The spread of the Delta variant, again, impacting many countries, ours included, really was the big determining factor that I didn't see a path forward to safely producing the NAMM Show in January. There were just too many variables that were unknown. And if anything, the unknown variables weren't tipping our way, they were actually tipping the other way. And so that really led to the very difficult decision. About the same time, we started very seriously looking at what could we do. The options were really, look at skipping another year and going to 2023, which would have been certainly on the table, or seeing if there was a possibility of trying to produce something later in the year and have a better opportunity to, see a more positive outcome from travel bans, see a more positive outcome from some of the supply chain issues with, people launching new products. There was a lot of feedback from the members, especially the exhibitors, that there really was going to be a challenge in January of seeing any new products or even seeing any products because of some of the challenges everyone was having. And that while there was no guarantee of any of those being solved, that June might have a better solution. The trick is, how do you find the convention center space to have the about 2-week period that it takes to actually load in the NAMM Show, set it up, run it, and then tear it down. Those facilities are generally pretty busy, sometimes multiple groups in at a time. Very few full facility groups like NAMM. Most of them are usually 5 or 6 groups in there using different parts. So I got to, give Anaheim such a, pat on the back for helping us to move things around to where we could find a date that we could conceivably do this, while not ideal, and having lots and lots of challenges around it, including the Memorial Day holiday, the Monday before. At least it was something that we could produce the show in a satisfactory way, gather everyone together. And so that was the choice on the table: do something in June or wait till January of 2023. That really was the choice. And we felt, from an industry standpoint, hearing from many of our members how important it was to get together to, chart this course, launch new products, solve some of the supply chain issues and work through all the things that happen at a NAMM show, let alone the dealer training, all the foundation work, all the things that are related to music making and promoting music, all that. The idea of skipping and waiting to 23, I thought we were going to lose a lot of that momentum. So there it was, lots of consultation with our board and our XCOM members around the world that were really weighing in heavily on things like travel ban, and ultimately trying to take the very best of this situation, or make the very best of the situation. Again, there were no easy choices, and it was all pandemic related. This was in no way anything we would have been considering had we not been in the middle of this maybe once in a lifetime situation. So yeah, that's the long-winded way of saying, boy, we have had some not great choices, and we chose the best of the not great choices. And hopefully we'll bring a lot of our members together, a lot of the industry together. I can tell you, initial response has been very positive, that thankfully you didn't cancel completely, that we have something to gather for. Obviously we got a lot of things to work through still, but we've been really gratified about the support so far.
Okay, well, thanks for that response. I know everyone wanted to know when the news came out. So was it regarding the date? I know you considered some other dates. Was it only when the Anaheim Convention Center was available? Was it you had to worry about holidays, whether they're national holidays, religious holidays, that sort of thing? I mean, how do you go about that to determine? I mean, that's pretty hard. I mean, when you're changing a date, and then you're getting close to, of course, in May and June, there's a lot of holidays around that time. So how did you figure that out? And was it more just finding that perfect time instead of the actual date of having in June? In other words, what I'm asking is, there's no significance to June itself. I guess it's that you were trying to find dates that will work for everybody. Is that the case?
Great question. I mean, again, it was basically trying to work 10 Rubik's cubes at the same time, right? I mean, the idea of, again, it really comes down to the space in Anaheim. Could we actually, put the date together where we'd have the time to load in, load out? There were absolutely no other times. So when you say, was there a choice? There was no other choice. And knowing then that we would be working around religious holidays, national holidays in the US, international holidays, other events and trade events around our industry segment, other events around Anaheim that would consume some of the hotel block. It was literally the complexity of 10 or 9 Rubik's cubes at the same time. When they all lined up, this was the only time that we could have made it happen in Anaheim. We didn't attempt to go to another city. That was, to me, something we weren't willing to do. Try and move it and not only change dates, but also move to a new city. We weren't willing to do that. So this was the only choice other than waiting to January 23 and not having a show this year. So I'm hoping that, those that are most impacted, again, religious holidays, college graduations, family holidays, things like that. I can only apologize and say, yeah, I wish there were a magic wand to wave and say, these dates would be perfect. There is no dates that were perfect. You could argue January dates are also very imperfect. There have been certainly times when we've lined up against national holidays. We've lined up against really important international, like Chinese New Year, things that were impacting many members. And regrettably, we've had to just, somehow produce the show with those ability, maybe losing people because of that. Respectfully, again, apologizing to all those who are impacted, but we realize this will be hopefully a one-off. And our firm desire is to get back to our dates in January, which we have held out in perpetuity in Anaheim. So that would be the pandemic was the root. The choices were limited, and we made the very best of the limited choices we had, which were really, binary. Do something in June, skip and have no show, and do something in January.
Well, the only negative for me is that I don't get to go during the cold weather time. So that's when you want to go to NAMM. So I'm
That
sure
was
you've heard
on,
that,
that
but
was on the list.
but
Yeah,
I
it
know
was on,
you can't do much about that.
that was certainly on the list as well. And again, I just can't say enough respectfully how apologetic I will be to everyone who is impacted by the very important reasons that people may not be able to go. I understand we're going to lose some people out of this, and I can only apologize and hope that they will, come back with us when we're able to get back to January. But yeah, this was as that great line in the movie Airplane from the 80s for your older viewers who may be fans of that eminently quotable movie Airplane. As they reached into the cockpit as the plane was going, I guess I picked a bad week to quit sniffing glue. This was not the best choice, but we needed to make a decision, and we made a decision so that everybody could plan. More than anything else, I felt very strongly that this was something we couldn't delay. Knowing that it takes 5 to 6 months to actually plan, I think the most difficult part was choosing. But once we chose, it was done. Everybody moving forward. We're going to have a show in June. We'll make for many, they're saying it actually is going to be much better for them. They weren't going to have any new products in January. They're saying in June, we'll have a ton of new products to show. So for others, it's actually the most, helpful thing we could have done for them. So industry this broad, industry this diverse, industry with this many opinions. This was a very difficult challenge to, under any circumstances. You mix a global pandemic in it, and we did the best we could, but the most important thing was to make a decision. Quote Rush again, the other great thespian, Neil Peart. If you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. We chose to decide. We chose to decide.
Yeah. Well, mine's a minor reason, so don't worry about it. Don't be that concerned. Well, I did want to ask you before we get into one more thing I wanted to bring up about the Music Day, I believe Music Week. I mean, you're going to have. I have to say, it is. You also, it's a two-pronged thing here because you're going to have no Summer NAMM. So number one is that have people expressed concern about that they really would have liked to have seen that. I know there's no way you could do it if you have a show in June, but have people expressed discontent about that or disappointment about that? And are you going to combine some of the events that you would have had at Summer NAMM, like the top 100 retailer event or something of that sort? Can you shine some light on that?
Great questions. There's several in there.
Yeah, there are a few questions there. Sorry.
There were other pieces of news in that release that were really key important. One is that we learned a lot about doing virtual events for sure, as we all did. And Believe in Music Week this past January was really helpful in many ways. Our reach went much deeper. We reached 50 additional countries in addition to the 130 countries that would normally visit the NAMM Show. It's pretty cool. We want to make sure we keep that. So in January, we will do a global live stream, Believe in Music, and it's going to have part trade, part education, and it's definitely going to have the networking and of course the philanthropic push that Believe in Music had. I want to have a global live stream in January, Believe in Music, hope to raise some money for the foundation, make sure that we all stay focused on the real task, which is creating more music makers, right? So that's going to be in January, the Friday that would have been in the NAMM Show. We're working on details of what it's going to look like, but a Believe in Music global live stream. 2, the chops that we learned about virtual events are going to be overlaid the June show. We will have a virtual event on top of the June event in Anaheim. That's going to, again, encompass the more global reach, hopefully reach those who cannot come, as we just talked earlier. Some were not going to be able to come. We want to reach them virtually. And we want to expand the ability to have education on demand. And we want to be able to those who are in Anaheim in June, that type of Believe in Music technology makes the time you're in Anaheim doubly effective. You're more effective with education on demand, the networking and everything that's happening while you're using the app, the Believe in Music app, while you're at the show. You're making the most of all your time. The combination of summer or the summer show moving into the June show, that just made sense. We can't do 2 45 days apart. That was just it was actually a very easy decision. We had to make that happen. Nashville's being really great to work with. They understood. They've been impacted by all this too, and they're looking forward to having us continue on in 23 and beyond. And we'll see how the pandemic affects all of that too. So one thing that's been difficult along this continuum is it really making, the longer term plans while we're still in the middle of the pandemic and dealing with those distortions. But the things that were normally a part of that made that show, both shows, Tech Awards, Parnelli Awards, Top 100 Dealer Awards, Women in Music Gathering, all the various functions that really make that gathering something that can't be replicated online are all going to be in June. All those events will take place in Anaheim in June, so that we'll have that, ability to serve the different segments with great new products, great education for all the segments, and all those networking events that brought the glue that held everyone together while we're there in Anaheim. Hope we get some of the touring people. I imagine as soon as the pandemic lifts a little bit, touring will go crazy. We hope it does anyway. We hope they will be out working. I'm kind of torn. I hope they're all out working, yet I want to have a bunch of them still come to the show. But I'm really concerned about them, and I want them to be succeeding along the way. Hopefully school music will be back in a big way at that time, and June will be really good for the school music dealers to be preparing for the rental season that's coming. Again, with so many segments, so many factors in an industry this broad and this global, there was not going to be a perfect solution. But we'll be very, very mindful to make sure we serve as many of them as possible with this event in June.
Okay, now, before we get into Fleet Music, do we have to ask you the tough one? And that's, do you have a backup plan for June? Let's just say the Lambda variants, for lack of, as an example. The next variants is a big problem when it comes to June.
Yep.
How long you'd have to make that decision in advance as well, I'm sure, a few months out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
What's going to go into that, and what is your, if you can't have a show, if things are bad, then I guess you would have to go out to 2023. But
That's right.
what would be your plan at that point? That's
right. We have to continue to, watch what's happening. Every company, every shape of our economy, or our policy is being impacted by what's happening medically, what's happening with the variants, and what's happening with vaccines. I can tell you there was a chart I saw that was graphing the number of new cases of the existing COVID-19, and it showed the peak in January of 2021 of cases in the US. This was the US chart. The actual trough of the fewest COVID-19 cases was the first week in June of 2021. So I like the way that chart looked. Even if there were variants, early June was absolutely the lowest incident of new cases in the United States. So I like the way that chart's looking. But to your point, if anyone has a crystal ball of what June 22 will look like, my number's on, you can maybe post my number or my email. I'd love to just get the call. Please share with me. If they have that crystal ball that's working well, not only they can help us with what the variants will look like, but I'm also interested in, some good stock picks or any other, things that I could learn from those with the true knowledge of what June's going to look like, because I don't think anyone knows. And
I text you some stock picks, or no?
I'm open to anything. Anyone that's kind of clarity for the future. I'd really like to. I think we can really we can learn a lot from anyone with that crystal ball. Mine's in the shop. Mine's been in the shop a while. So happy.
Well, we should note though that you did have a show go off really well in July. So I mean, I think that really shouldn't be underestimated here. The Summer NAMM went off well, in a lot of ways. It's a really good show. I mean, there were a lot of retailers there, and
that's right.
I'm not aware of any huge COVID outbreak that happened there. So
again,
it went over very well.
There's a million opinions about where this is going to be. Is COVID going to be something like the flu we learn to live with, where we don't shut down our economy, we don't shut down our schools? We don't know. And I think, again, there's so many opinions out there of what this may be like. My hunch is that this will be around a while. I think anyone who thought it was going to be gone quickly, that level of optimism is probably gone. And we're now thinking about more of a longer term. How do we live with this? How do we, maximize the health and safety of large events and concerts and festivals and shows like ours? What do we do differently so we learn from all that And like we were talking about earlier, during last fall, the incidence of normal flu was at a record low because of the safety precautions that everyone was taking. What can we learn from that? How can we make future NAMM shows safer than ever by implementing some of these, what are now going to be accepted safety protocols? So there'll be silver linings about us of what we've learned. And that if we do have to live with this long-term or variants of it, we will be better prepared to make sure these large gatherings are as safe as possible and potentially even less of the type of thing that would have occurred normally when you get that many people together from around the world. So, but that could take years to really sort itself out. And again, crystal balls in the shop, eager to hear who has the actual answer. You call me directly anytime. Cell's on all the time.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, you're probably correct in that it probably is going to be around, in just my opinion, that's going to be around for a very long time. And it's just, we're going to have to just find a way to deal with it, and maybe get an annual shot like we do, or maybe with a flu vaccine or something of that sort.
Judging this is going to take some time. And one of my favorite sayings is when historians gather, they probably have conventions too, a historian convention perhaps. And when historians gather and they contemplate the true meaning of the French Revolution, and most historians will say, when asked what was the true impact of the French Revolution, they'll respond, it's still too soon to tell. And so I take heart in that, in big historical things like we're living through right now. What is the long-term impact? It's just still too soon to tell. What is the future of trade gatherings? What is the future of independent retail versus large and multi-site retail, online versus brick and mortar, direct to consumer? All of that is happening in and around all of this. And what is the true impact of the pandemic on those underlying forces? It's still too soon to tell. like a good historian would say,
No doubt, no doubt. Lastly, I wanted to ask you about the Believe in Music. I guess it might be, you said Believe in Music Day. I guess
it's going to be a global live stream. I think.
Live. Well, I wanted to ask you specifically. I want to put your feet to the fire for a second here, because I have to be the tough guy and ask the tough questions, right? I don't know.
I can take it. Come on,
the retailers watching want to know. I want to paraphrase when we talked about this last year in this same sort of venue. I'm going to paraphrase you, not your exact words, but you basically said it's our first time doing this, and we're going to make a lot of mistakes. So, with that said, can you? I don't know if you need to get into the specific mistakes, but can you tell me what you've learned and how you're going to make it better? It's assuming that you did make some mistakes and you do want to improve the platform for everyone, because that's the newest event you're.
Well, I mean, think about this past year and how much time all of us spent on these podcasts or Zooms and Teams meetings. And, I can list the number of mistakes. They would take more time than we have now. But one of them was, I think we did something like 1,150 different events during that time frame, online, educational events, artist events, new product launches. And I think what we learned during the pandemic is that humans have a certain capacity for attention span on this medium. And that was too much. We did too much. We tried to create so many individual things online that it became so specialized that some probably had very few viewers. We just spread everything out too thin. The ability to concentrate for days on end on a this medium, I just don't, I think we talked a lot about how school children had trouble focusing on Zoom school. Well, I can tell you adults and probably had the same thing. I know I did. It was very difficult to stay focused on a screen for hours and hours on end. Many of our members said they had multiple screens open while they were doing some of their work. They were watching a little bit of Believe, maybe taking an NAMM course online, maybe checking out a new product introduction with multiple screens. And I think, research will show that when you have your attention divided that much, it probably isn't sinking in like it is if you're one-on-one in someone's exhibit booth or one-on-one at a dinner at a NAMM show with somebody and really having that human interaction. So I think we'll do fewer things. We'll try and do them better. We'll try and be more respectful of people's time and not stretch it out so long. So those are some of the key takeaways. We threw the kitchen sink at it and probably the refrigerator too. And that we found out that there's a point where there's diminishing returns online. And, I can tell you after attending a couple of kind of these things I would have traveled to, a 2-day event that became an online event over 2 days, really difficult to stay focused. Maybe it's because I'm a drummer and have a short attention span anyway, but I found myself as someone's droning on going, it's going over here. Yeah, it's just, so it'll be shorter. We'll do fewer things. We'll try and do them better to where they're more respectful of people's time and just get in, get out, do it well, hit it around the world. Then we got so many different time zones, make it more as entertaining as possible, as educational as possible. And then really the message of that will be see you in June in person, because that's what we really are craving, is more of that in-person one-on-one. So that's what I learned. That's kind of a thumbnail. I can tell you after meeting with show organizers all around the world that went to the hybrid model, there is not one of them, not one that I met who said that's the future. Not one. No, it's not the medium that it's, and thank God for it. We'd be lost without it. And again, I credit having these tools with partly how productivity was able to stay so high, but not one of them who organizes or concert or artists that I've talked to feel that that's the answer, as opposed to being in a concert, in a club with a great band with others that like that band, in a room at a NAMM session with others who are hearing and interacting, or on a trade show floor where the collective wisdom of a global industry is combined at once, where you get to see everything in one place. There is no place to replicate that than at a conference. And perhaps that's maybe why humans have been gathering for 6,000 years of recorded human history. Perhaps that's why. But as a historian would say, who knows? It's still too soon to tell.
Well, there's no question. You can't, it's not only seeing everything in one place. You just can't replicate the experience you get. It's just, for me, it's spending a lot of time with manufacturers, it's seeing the retailers, going out with them at night and going to events. You just can't replicate that on Zoom. I know that you do everything you can and everyone tries to do everything they can, but even if you have a Zoom breakout room or something, it's just not the same. And I tried that with a Zoom breakout room and a drink and chatting with people, and it wasn't bad, but it's not the same as
we've all done them. We've all done them. And someone viewing this as a naysayer might say, well, of course he'd be saying all this. He's a show organizer. He's a musician. He likes all that stuff. I'm a tech person. I think tech is the answer. So you'll get those answers depending on a personal bias or something that has in mind. But I can tell you personally, if the world was only virtual, that's when I step off and go live in a cabin in Montana and do a lot more fishing, because that's not a world I want to be a part of. This is what we are. Music is about connectivity. Music is about bringing people together, and maybe that's the power of music. And as an industry, I think every one of us should be hoping and betting that doesn't go away. There's only so much how much guitar playing can you do in your bedroom before, if you don't advance to playing with other people or playing in a band, that thing gets stuck onto your bed and maybe doesn't get played again. So I think as an industry, anyone who's betting for live events to not come back is like being in the back of a flight someday, hoping your pilot fails. Anyone who's hoping that events don't come back, I think really is literally betting that against their own plane landing safely. Well,
look at the difference it's going to make in the sports industry. Just think about football is starting up, and how the football fields are going to be packed. And then all the players even will say it's just such a much different experience playing in front of roaring fans. And it's the same way in every sport. It's just to think about this, having these things virtual, having events virtual, just doesn't work, as well. There's just no way to do it. It's good. I would rather see a sporting event on TV than no sporting event. Right. So that's why it was okay during 2020. But but you don't want to, that's not the thing you want. I mean,
Yeah.
you really want to be there out and be in that live audience. I mean, and it's the same thing with watching a concert. I mean, you really want to be there. And so completely.
Someone there is the answer to the hybrid too, right? The model of a hybrid will be taking what is occurring, like use the analogy of a football field. The hybrid is taking what's occurring on the football field and letting others around the world see it beyond those that are in the stands. I think there's a real lesson there for as we develop hybrid. It's taking what's occurring on the field, in this case, on a trade show floor
Right.
or in a educational session. And what it's doing is allowing others around the world to be a part of that. But I don't think there's anyone who, obviously technology has been great and we all have big screens now, but I think someone who's in the stands of a college football game. Last weekend was a tremendous college football weekend, and we watched some games at home, and I just, I felt jealous of those who were in the stands being at that game. And so I think many people who might participate virtually on a NAMM show, because of our enhanced ability to share that around the world, would still be jealous of someone who actually is at the show and experiencing that concert or that product demo or that NAMM speaker who's really, vibrant. And so I think that's the model, I think, in many ways, taking what's happening on the field, like in sports, and letting it be shared more broadly around the world. So the models are out there. Sports are a good model. We have to definitely follow what they're doing with the safety protocols in person as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people trying to make this happen. A lot of people trying to figure this out. The issue for us in many ways is the global nature of the show. 130 countries coming to the NAMM show. A TCU game in Fort Worth doesn't quite have that challenge. But for us, at any global show, until we can resume some sense of normalcy about global travel and global movement of goods, that's going to be a little more of a challenge for us. So.
Yeah, totally understood. Yeah, and then I'm not saying a hybrid model is specifically bad. I mean, they're certainly for anyone who can't come, I think it's a much better option than not seeing anything at all.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So I mean that's really important. So
Ryan, I think we solved all the problems of the world right now. This is one of the best, not even half an hour that we've ever spent.
I think it's been around half an hour. So we solve a lot of the world's problems.
Let's see if we can keep anyone's attention that long. This could be a great example of Zoom fatigue.
I'm feeling a little strange when you just said that no one pays attention to these things.
No, I said if we kept them with us this long, it'll be a great lesson in that we've overcame the Zoom fatigue with our scintillating personalities.
Well, I hope you guys are, the viewers out there, I hope you'll be able to watch it because I don't have anything important to say, but Joe does have a lot of important things to say. So I appreciate you talking about that. And we should say it's going to be, to remind everyone, the 2022 NAMM show is going to be on June 3rd to June 5th. It's a 3-day show, not a 4-day show like we were used to in the past. So I just want to mention that just as a housekeeping note. And thank you. Well, I look forward to it. I hope we could all be there. I'm crossing my fingers. I really want to go, and let's hope this is at bay at least at that point, and we can see each other in person again. But
my old mentor Carl Bruin used to have a saying that there are days in your life that you remember for the rest of your life, and he would always preface it with, "But those are damn few days." And I can tell you, those who are with us in June next year, it's going to be one of those that you remember for the rest of your life, and I can't wait to see everyone there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Joe Lamond, President and CEO of NAMM, for joining us. And let's look forward to better times. And I'm looking forward to it. 9 months out from now, right? Around there. Yeah, I gotta get my math right. But I look forward to seeing you then. And appreciate you taking the time after this big news.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.